Jay Crawford, Adam the Bull, Garrett Bush, Dustin Fox, Jason Lloyd, Tyvis Powell, plus, ba-da-da-da-da, you're loving him, Mikey McNuggets. And so many big names, it would take me hours to say all of their names. The ultimate Cleveland sports show starts now. Booyah!
Hey, and welcome to the ultimate Cleveland sports show, WKYC style. I'm Jay Crawford. Over the next 30 minutes, we're breaking down everything Browns-Chargers. The big question coming into this football game, it's the Chargers offense versus the Browns defense. Who's going to win that battle within the game? Bull.
Former Buccaneers quarterback Jameis Winston had a great game for the Browns. But how great was it? We'll talk with another former Buccaneers quarterback, Sean King, to break it down. G.
Hey, listen, G. Bush, and I'm anxious to get the Kool-Aid Mafia started, but we're going to see if Jameis Winston can do it again. Was last week the peak of his powers? We'll talk about it. Jason.
I'm Jason Lloyd. Nick Chubb has shown flashes the last couple weeks. It's coming back. You're seeing him round into form. Is this his big breakout game, or do we have to wait until after the bye week to see it? Mikey.
Plus, it's a UCSS staple, pre-written headlines. We're going to tell you who wins the matchup on Sunday with some pretty crazy predictions.
Last week, did anybody call for the Browns to beat the Ravens?
No.
Nobody.
Did not.
So, there's always a trend. Whenever we all go one way, it
always
tends to
goes
go the other way. Despite that, we do sometimes know what we're talking about. And this is a fascinating topic to me because Jameis Winston in his career with Tampa Bay had a couple of 4,000-yard seasons, had a 5,000-yard season, and always threw for a lot of touchdowns, but the picks killed him. His numbers on Sunday were worthy enough to be the offensive player of the week in the AFC. 3 touchdowns, no picks, over 300 yards. Guys, is it possible he can play better on Sunday?
I think he absolutely can, guys, because even though he didn't throw any picks, he threw some pick-worthy passes.
He did.
So, listen, with Jameis Winston, you get some of that. But he's had 400-yard games in his career. So I think this is near the upper end of what he can do, and I don't expect him to play better this week. But, yeah, against New Orleans, in a dome, off a bye in 2 weeks, I could see him playing even better than he did last week.
Certainly he would be motivated to go back to New Orleans in that game. I tend to think, could the numbers be a little bit better? Okay, fine, maybe. But what you saw last week, I believe, is about peak Jameis. That's about as good as it's going to get because there are going to be turnovers at times that kill drives or haunt you. But what he gives you is the opportunity to come back on the back end and make a bigger play or make up for it in some way. But overall, if he's throwing it to defensive backs like he did Kyle Hamilton, more times than not, that ball's going to be intercepted. So I believe that was probably about as good of a performance as you're going to see out of him. Doesn't mean he can't replicate it and do it again. I don't know that it's fair or reasonable to expect more than that.
Listen, I think that Jameis Winston can come out and definitely have a better game. Not just based on the yardage. I think that you can look at Jameis Winston and say, this is a guy that was sitting on the bench for 2 years, didn't have very many starts. He's not getting first-team reps. He's not really acclimated to what they want to do. Matter of fact, Dorsey took over his play calling, and that was something new to him. I think that where you can see an improvement in Jameis Winston is now you can give him opportunity to audible and get the team in better plays, maybe switching from bad runs into some quick passes or doing things and having better command of the huddle, better command of where he wants to go with the football. I think he definitely could get better, especially if he limits some of the turnover-worthy throws. I think that Jameis can get better as he gets more reps, and I think that he'll play better in a lot of other areas besides just yardage.
Wow. So this was tough for me because he's done that a lot. He's had a lot of 300-yard games, a lot of 3-touchdown games. To think that he's going to do it, I think he pitched a perfect game, really, last week, in that the 3 touchdowns and no picks. Mm-hmm. I just don't see him going back-to-back weeks with 300, 3 tutties, and no picks. That's the bar for, like, perfect game, kind of, in today's NFL. So I think somewhere along the line, one of those numbers is going to be less, whether it's fewer touchdowns or fewer yards or more interceptions. I think one of the 3 will probably not be as good as it was last Sunday. All that being said, I'm very excited about what we have here in Jameis Winston and what he can be. If he truly has washed out the interceptions, like Sean King, who, by the way, in our next segment is going to have an unbelievable breakdown of Jameis last week. If he can wash those interceptions out, not eliminate them, just reduce them, they've got something here. And at 30 years old, it might be more than just a bridge. It might be a guy that can get you 6, 8 more seasons, depending on how he plays moving forward. All right, from that, we want to talk about Nick Chubb because you saw something. You saw he's coming from week to week. 11 carries, 22 yards for 2 yards a carry in his debut. He did score the touchdown, but we didn't see anything that said, oh, yeah, that's Nick Chubb. Then last week, the numbers were better. 16 carries, 52 yards. Average was up to 3.2. Didn't find the end zone. But we saw some flashes in there. Is it possible that in just his third game back, we see the true and real number 24?
It's always possible. Like, the last thing you would ever want to do is bet against Nick Chubb. How many times has he proven that before? What was impressive to me, if you just look at the numbers last week, you're going to say, okay, well, he's not ready yet. He's not back yet. Will he ever get there? But if you watch the game, if you watch a couple of those runs that he had, there's nothing there, and he's got a 4-yard gain or a 6-yard gain. Those are Nick Chubb plays. We've talked about it before. The difference between Nick and everybody else on this roster is he turns a 2-yard gain into a 5-yard gain, a 4-yard gain into an 8-yard gain, a 6-yard gain into a 15, 20-yard gain. That's the beauty of his excellence. And you started to see that come back last week. Is it going to be this week? I tend to think maybe he needs one more before you see the big eye-popping numbers. Maybe that's after the bye week type situation at New Orleans. But what last week showed me was it's still in there because the first game, you kind of throw it out, okay, that wasn't really a vintage Nick Chubb game. What he showed last week is Nick Chubb can still be Nick Chubb.
Yeah, listen, when you get past having an ACL injury, something goes off a little bit. You get to a point where you say, oh, I could make that move and I didn't hurt. Oh, I woke up today and my knee wasn't swollen. Mm-hmm. And usually you break out in your mind before you break out on the field. And so when you break out in your mind and you start visualizing yourself doing it and you start to see the increments, Nick Chubb is this close. There was a lot of yardage that he got that wasn't there, like Jason said. You start to see the burst a little bit more. And furthermore, I think he's going to break out is because now you're slowly starting to see up front the Cleveland Browns morph back into some of the things that they were doing well. You saw a lot of duo plays. You saw a lot more double teams, more zone plays up front, double teaming to the linebackers and not runs out of shotgun. So I think that when you're going to see more of that and with the play action game, you can't afford to sit back and not put guys in lighter boxes because Jameis Winston is throwing for 300 yards. Now you get Nick Chubb with light boxes. I think you're going to start to see him put the yards on and look like the old Nick Chubb bull.
I agree. I don't think the big breakout game is going to happen yet this week, but he's clearly trending in the right direction. I think we're all on the same page here. I thought there were more carries this week where you saw the specialness, and sometimes you don't notice it as much when it's a 3-yard run, but we've seen Nick Chubb play enough to notice the difference there, and look at that run right there.
That's crazy. I just got caught up watching it.
I did too.
I'm like that
this year, but
man.
But I think the breakout game comes against New Orleans. I think that's in 2 weeks. I think he has a fine game tomorrow, and I think the full breakout game comes in 2 weeks after the bye against the Saints.
Yeah, I tend to think that makes perfect sense. Give him another couple of weeks. I love what you said about breaking out in your mind before you break out on the grass. That, you know that, and I know that is 1,000% sure. I will promise you that Nick Chubb, even though he is a superhuman physical specimen, he's human. And when he stepped on the field 2 weeks ago against Cincinnati, and even last Sunday against Baltimore, there are doubts. There are always going to be little voices in your head that say, don't do this because it could lead to it happening again. When those doubts go away, I don't know. He's the only one that can tell you. But I do think from watching him that he had fewer doubts Sunday than he did against Cincinnati. And if you just follow that progression, I think he'll have even fewer doubts this Sunday against the Chargers. Then he's going to have a bye week. And his body's going to be healed from the 3 weeks of attrition from the games. And I do think that when he takes on the Saints, we're going to see maybe not exactly the old Nick Chubb, but we're going to see something that we all can agree, and when we look at it and say, 24's in there again. That's him.
Especially being on turf.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to talk about the Chargers offense right now because, guys, this offense was prolific passing the ball. And then Jim Harbaugh takes over, and we know what he likes to do. He's a run game, defensive-minded head coach. So I look at this game basically coming down to that matchup. The Chargers offense against a Browns defense that looks like they're showing signs of becoming the old Browns defense. Yes, there are some injuries. JOK will not play. However, it's important to note that Denzel Ward is practicing today with no restrictions. So that, to me, sounds like it's leaning towards him clearing protocol. How do we see the Chargers offense matching up with this Browns defense?
Well, I look at it, and like you said, J.K. Dobbins has played very well. Another guy coming off a lot of injuries. They want to run the football. But, I think it boils down to this. When you look at it, we just got a report that Denzel Ward looks like he's going to play. Myles Garrett is going to be a guy that's going to be out there. I think Zadarius Smith has played much better over this year than he did play last year.
Quick correction. The report didn't say he's definitely going to play. It's
no,
just that he's
practicing with no restrictions.
He may play.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's true.
I just said it leans like he's going to be playing.
It's trending in the right direction.
Certainly has not been ruled in.
Yeah.
I think if you this is a game, if the Cleveland Browns can stop the run, and just sounds crazy, but make Justin Herbert throw the football. In years past, I thought he had the weapons to do so. I don't think that they have the weaponry on the outside to make the Browns pay for that as they did in years past.
This has been a hard season, right? Like, everyone feels good coming off the win last week, but this has still been a pretty difficult season for the Browns. Certainly if you're a veteran in that locker room, it has been. And the only reason I mention that is because the trade deadline is Tuesday. And Zadarius Smith is already on record saying, I'd be open to maybe moving. What better way, if you want to get on a team that really has a legitimate chance to play for a championship, than in the last game prior to the trade deadline, if you're Zadarius Smith, if you're Dalvin Tomlinson, go out and put a good game on tape.
Yeah. And the Detroit Lions are watching.
The Detroit Lions are absolutely watching, along with a lot of other teams. So I actually think that plays a lot into it. These guys are looking at this going, this is my opportunity maybe to get into a situation with the team with a winning record and a chance to make a deep playoff run. They had a great game last week against Baltimore. Let's put another good game on tape this week, and then there's 48 hours to see where my fate leads. And a lot of the players that we're talking about in terms of who may be on the move are on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm not worried about the Chargers run game at all. I think the hype over the Chargers run game is a complete fraud, and let me explain to you why. J.K. Dobbins, the first 2 games of the season, was insanely good. First 2 games.
Very good.
Look at the last 5 games. He's done nothing. Those stats are completely misleading. The first 2 games of the year, he averaged about 7 yards a carry against Carolina and the Raiders, 2 of the worst teams in the league. In the last 5 weeks, he's averaging about 3 yards a carry. Go look at the stat. Mike, could you, if you have time, maybe during the break or whatever, he is the most yards per carry he's had in the last 5 games is 3.8. In some of those games, he's been under 3 yards. And like I said, he only did well against bad teams. So I don't buy that their running game's that good. They certainly don't have much of a passing game because they don't have the skill position players outside of McConkey, who's a nice player. I mean, most people can't even name their skill position players. So they are at best, to me, a mid offense. And the way the Browns defense has been trending, I think the Chargers are going to have a hard time scoring.
Yeah, for me, the line was 24 points. I think that's going to be, and I know that sounds odd because we've scored over 20 once, but it was the last game. So I think, to me, the line was you're going to have to score 24 points to win. And I think they can hold the Chargers under 24. So I think the Browns defense wins that battle and holds that Chargers offense because I agree with you. Their offense hasn't been prolific. Keep them under 24 and you have a chance to win. I think that's where we're going.
Real quick on Dobbins, Bull, to answer your question. Yeah, 3.8 yards per carry against Denver. He had 96 yards on 25 carries that game. Outside of that, since the first 2 weeks of the season, 2.9 yards per carry, 2.3 yards per carry, 3.8, 2.9, and 3.4.
Yeah,
not great
bad.
since those first 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's not great. That's bad. Yeah, you're right. All right, we're going to take a break. I promise you're going to want to stick around for this. Sean King, the master of quarterback film breakdown, is going to tell us what he saw from Jameis Winston's huge Week 1 as a starter when the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show on WKYC comes right back. Welcome back to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. It's one of our favorite segments of the show. It's when our guy, our quarterback whisperer, Sean King, tells us exactly what he was seeing last week from quarterback Jameis Winston. This week's a good one. Enjoy.
I'm going to put some of this stuff eventually on my coach's tape, and I make a cut up of what it's supposed to look like. Elijah Moore's going across in motion. He got some kind of zone coverage. Top of the drop, hits his fifth step, hitches, throws, balls right on the money. I want you to pause it right at the hitch point when he gets ready, right there. So he's seeing this. So Elijah's still on a vertical route. Watch when this ball gets released. When this ball comes out of his hand, Elijah's head isn't even to him. We talked so many times in the previous weeks about the receiver's eyes already being at the quarterback and the ball not having left his arms. This is what anticipation and timing is about. This ball is out of Jameis's hands before he sees Elijah Moore's eyes. Nothing the defense can do. Let's not forget Ken Dorsey, who called the plays in this game. This is a really good play design here. A lot of times, you look at the elite wide receivers in this league, you don't really have to move DK Metcalf around. You don't have to move, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. They're so physically gifted. They can get off press coverage. They can beat man coverage from a static position. But sometimes when you get to the second tier guys, you have to get creative in getting them releases. So this is a tight bunch formation here. So you have all of the Ravens DBs inside of the numbers, and watch the release from the trip side down here at the bottom. This is what creates the initial space for Elijah to get into his route. Now he's got separation. He's running full speed. And what makes the play work is Jameis's timing, anticipation, and ball location. Jameis sees it, throws it, boom. Easy pass, easy throw and completion there. But give Dorsey some credit for a really creative way of having Elijah as the inside point on the trips, but also the guy running the out route. This is what a real quarterback play looks like. And, man, this is elite right here. If we can run it, this is so good by Jameis Winston. Look, he's on a 7-step drop. Pause it right there. Look at this window that he's looking at. The flat route hadn't really impacted the flat coverage yet. The third cornerback that's below the 40 is outside leverage on an outside breaking route. But listen, I tell quarterbacks all the time, man, great offense always beats great defense. And watch Jameis deliver this ball over the underneath coverage perfectly to the sideline for his wide receiver. Man, that's just a thing of beauty. This is just NFL football. This is great defensive coverage by the Baltimore Ravens. He's glued to Njoku. There's not a lot of window there. But what Jameis knows, man, when you got a big fella like that has soft hands, that can catch the ball, give him chances to be great. So Jameis doesn't hesitate. He knows he's got the one-on-one matchup, throws him a catchable back shoulder ball. Njoku makes the play. Here's what I mean by catchable. If you look at this right at the end, this ball isn't thrown hard, low, and outside. This ball's got a little air under it. It gives Njoku a time to get his eyes on it, turn his body around, and make the catch. So really good tempo on this ball by Jameis. And this is just Njoku putting more, I think, believable things on the resume that he's one of the elite tight ends in this league.
Wow, and those were some elite next-level throws. I get more and more excited about Jameis and what he can be here after I watch stuff like that, because none of that was by accident. It's consistent. He's decisive with the football. He's looking off safeties and then spinning back and throwing the other way. That's what great quarterback play looks like.
I'm so glad he picked the Elijah Moore play, because that's the play we talked about on Monday.
Yes.
And without prompting, that's the one that he pulled, because that's what I said on Monday was that ball's out of his hand before Elijah's even into his break. And for him to recognize that and see that, we talked on the YouTube show about throwing guys open.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that play was.
Wow.
Yeah, Sean King, Sean has already showed us with his breakdowns of Deshaun Watson that he's going to give us the real deal. He's going to tell us what he sees, and he knows as better as well as anyone because he played the position in the NFL. And so for him to be that hyped and excited about what he's seeing from Jameis Winston has got to make you feel more confident about him going forward.
Man, it wasn't no accidental success right there. Them was dimes. Them was over top of underneath defender in the pocket, throwing the ball with anticipation, with some touch on the football in certain opportunities. Jameis Winston, for those that don't really know, and you may think you saw him and he's a backup, throws a lot of picks, and some of the stereotypes are there about him. But make no bones about it, Jameis Winston is an elite thrower if he has time and he's throwing with rhythm and pace, and he said it himself, when I'm playing at my best, I'm one of the best quarterbacks. And he showed you in that very small sample size the skill set that he has. The question for everybody is, can you replicate it, and can you do it 2 weeks in a row and get another win?
Well, that's what we're going to find out. And I have to tell you that I am more confident after watching that breakdown that, yes, he can do it a second week in a row and a third week. This is stackable. You can duplicate this because it's built on all of the principles that he's learned to this point in his career. One of the things that Sean made a point of when he appeared on our YouTube show on Wednesday, and I think a lot of people might have looked at this initially and said, whoa, that's quite a statement. He said, in truth, Jameis Winston got to the NFL with more skills and better building blocks to be a great quarterback here than Deshaun Watson. And, okay, national championship quarterback in Deshaun Watson, played well, but he talked about what he did there. He ran a spread offense. Jameis at Florida State was running this. Mm-hmm. He was running Jimbo's offense, which is pretty much, it's a similar style offense to this.
Offense.
Under center, a lot of play fakes, and built on principles. Deshaun's skill set, for the most part, was built on ad lib. Was built on how he could react to things when the play broke down.
But to be fair, Deshaun played better early in his career than Jameis did.
Yes.
But Jameis does have a pedigree. He was drafted first overall.
The league is different now.
That's
the
true.
The defense has pivoted and made some adjustments. We're taking a break. When we come back, who wins Sunday? Our pre-written headlines tells you. Next. It's time. Our pre-written headlines. Bull, you're up first. Who wins?
I'm a big flip-flopper, Earl. I originally sent my headline in with a Chargers win, and then I changed it and sent the new headline in. Let's see it. Fraudulent Chargers defense collapses. Browns come out with a 27-14 win. I looked more into the Chargers defense, and I just don't. If you look at their pass defense, which is ranked number one. First of all, it's too small a sample size. They have, of the 7 games they've played, 5 of them are against maybe the 5 worst quarterbacks in the league, not named Deshaun Watson. So, so I think those numbers are completely skewed, and I think they're a decent team, the Chargers. But I think right now in this moment, the Browns are playing better football. I know it's just one game; it's a little prisoner in the moment. But the Browns are at home, and they'll take care of business.
Listen, I told you Flacco would throw for 300. Jameis Winston brings it back. But this time it ain't Flaccavelli. It's the preacher man. Famous Jameis. He brings back the Kool-Aid Mafia, and he baptizes. He baptizes the Chargers. I got the Browns winning this football game. 31-17, 300 yards for I almost said Deshaun Watson.
I know you did.
Hey, right?
Yeah.
Hey, we didn't
that
get
would be a headline.
We didn't get it from Deshaun. We'll get it from Jameis. Famous Jameis gives me 300 plus again 2 weeks in a row.
Boy, one win has really flipped the whole mood here. I told you I can't pick the Browns until they give me a reason to pick them. Well, last week I guess they gave us a reason to pick them. I'm back on board at least for 1 week.
Boy.
Fully charged.
Bad luck.
Chubb and defense carry Browns a 2014 win, and what that means to me is it sets up a really interesting trade deadline on Tuesday if the Browns win this game.
You saying playoffs?
No. No.
Playoffs.
Hey,
I'm still trading everybody.
that drum is getting louder.
Yeah, well, there's real danger in what's about to happen.
Oh, boy.
And Mikey will clinch this. But if so far the panel's got a clean sweep. I'm going Browns on this one. I think, and I see what I did with my headline. Winston smokes. Bolts. Offense rolls again. I got 27-24. I mean, either we are the most swayable bunch of homers that ever existed,
Apparently, that's the case right now.
or we can see talent when it jumps in front of us. Mikey,
Nuggets not at a wedding. I see that.
I know. I saw that too. I enjoyed that.
I am here, and it's not a good thing when we all agree.
It hasn't
So
been.
luckily, psych, I picked the Browns. Get out of here. How about charged up for a playoff push? Yes, we're drinking the playoff.
Yeah.
Jameis shocks LA's number 1 ranked defense. Browns enter by high, riding a 27-16 win.
Bull, myself, and you all have them scoring 27 points.
Which means they're going to score 4.
Guys, don't make us look like a bunch of idiots.
I got
Come
him
on,
in the
Browns.
30s.
Take care of business.
I got him in the 30s. Let's go. Listen, Kool-Aid Mafia needs a resurgence. Jameis, please bring it home.
Yeah,
Don't make me look crazy.
it looks like they're about to. Enjoy the game on Sunday. It should be a pretty good one. Hopefully it will be. And most importantly, tune in at the 2-minute mark to the UCSS Browns postgame show. Last week's was very entertaining because, as was the case last year, the game was decided in the final 2 minutes.
That's right.
And you got to see the guys react to it live. Have a great weekend. Go Browns. We'll see you Monday and at Sunday after the game on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show Browns Recap.
Peace.